If I ruled the world, I love 'em, baby.
If I Ruled the World podcast welcomes Michael Alago. From what I understand,
Yes.
they're renewing the documentary for another year on
Yes.
Netflix.
I don't know if I can curse, but if not.
Curse away, please.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a documentary out about me called Who the Fuck Is That Guy? The Fabulous Journey of Michael Alago. It's been on Netflix for 2 years now, and Netflix just re-upped it, so it's going to be up at least until September 2020, which is
It's
a really
long
good
time for Netflix.
Listen,
Yeah.
You know what? A lot of people have been watching it, I guess, and they just re-upped it. I don't ask why.
Yeah.
I just say thank you.
And how's your life changed since that documentary came out? You know, I saw an interview with you in like 2009.
Yes.
And then I saw a lot of interviews with you after this documentary. And, people will turn it on because of who you're adjacent to, right? They see James Hetfield, they see Cyndi Lauper, and they're like, they literally say, who is that guy? They watch it. Then they get a sense of you.
Sure.
And you're the one to watch. You're a fantastic storyteller. And people must have reached out to you like, how has that changed your life?
I don't know if it's exactly changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
A few other opportunities happened because of the documentary. I got a book deal, and so that was nice.
Yeah.
But change, I don't know about change, because I'm still the same person, except that it's really nice when people walk up to you on the street and say, "Are you that guy?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yes, I'm that guy." And recently on 14th Street here, there's a guy working on the MTA guy working on the subway tracks.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Are you that guy?" I said, "I am." He said, "Oh my God, me and my wife loved your movie."
Yeah.
He goes, "Wait, I'm gonna get up off the track." So he got up off the track and he was on the platform and he had some little camera in his pocket and he said, "Can we take a picture?" And I said, "Of course we could take a picture." He's I'm filthy from being on the tracks. I said, "Oh, honey, worse has happened." So we took a picture and he was grateful. And so things like that happen all the time. People, like I was at the doctor's office yesterday and the guy said, "Are you Michael Alago?" I said, "I am." He said, "Oh my God, you're connected with Metallica, right?" I said, "I signed them summer of '84.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I just saw your movie and it's wonderful." And, the funny part about that is it's been out 2 years and I still get emails every day.
Right.
Israel, Costa Rica, Colombia, all these places that are just seeing it 2 years later, which is really nice.
And that's the beauty
and it's
of
funny
Netflix.
because when Drew Stone, our fearless director, was in Israel, he saw it on TV and he saw all of those Hebrew letters at the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
So seeing Cyndi Lauper with all those Hebrew letters was just kind of fun and cool.
Yeah. And to watch the documentary, being a background person is not what comes to mind when you see your personality. You're very, very energetic, but you were the A&R guy around a lot of famous people. So in some sense, you are in the background. And now, does it feel a little strange to kind of have that type of attention towards you?
No, I think it's rather nice. I think that the film talks as much about music as it does about for instance, addiction and recovery and just life in general. So when you put yourself out there and put your whole life out there and you tell the truth about it, I think people relate to that. So, the day it went on Netflix, the next day I got 1,200 emails. Jesus. Now, half of those emails, of course, are, "Dude, you signed Metallica."
Yeah.
And the other half
I was one of those.
"Hi, Michael. My name is," I think his name, it was the first kid whose name was Raul. "And I'm writing to you from Colombia.
Yeah.
I'm HIV positive. I'm 21 years old. And if I ever told my dad, he would kill me."
Wow.
So, you can't just write back to people and say, "Glad you liked the film."
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the people who wrote about Metallica, I didn't send them like a form letter, but after about like 300 writing people back, I just copied and paste and I sent a picture of me and James to them, and I'm sure everybody appreciated it. But when people are struggling, you can't just write, "Thanks for watching the film."
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here to give advice, but all I could say is what happened to me in those situations. And I guess I do kind of advise people. Like that one kid said to me, "I'm not taking meds yet." And I said, "Well, if you don't need to take medications, don't. If you're drinking and drugging, you better stop it.
Yeah.
And you just need to take care of yourself and pay attention."
Right.
So it's a lot when you get those kinds of emails, but that people trust you enough to say something like that to you, it's really a blessing.
Yeah.
And if I could be of service and of help to them, that's just what I do.
Yeah, and it's a comfort because you're coming from a place that they recognize. It's not like a doctor. It's not stoic. They see something that you went through. It relates, and then in that way, it opens up that you can advise them.
I think they just, they relate to the music that I signed, and that they saw the movie, and they're going through some of the same things that I've gone through in my life.
I was thinking, if we go back a little bit, I
Sure.
was, reviewing a lot of your life, and there's a lot out there, and we're going to talk about your upcoming book. But I was thinking about my own life. Like, I remember going to a club, the bands that changed my life and that whole thing. And I was thinking there are bands that you saw when you were younger, but actually the act of just walking into a club when you met Jerry Brandt changed your life. And there was no band on, there was no nothing. That was like during the day, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I talk about it in the movie, but I don't mind talking about it again. I was going to the School of Visual Arts.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in a pharmacy on Astor Place, and I was going to get lunch. So I was walking down East 11th Street one day, and there was a beautiful building. I didn't realize it was called Casa Galicia. It was a Spanish dance hall.
Mm-hmm.
But on the door, there was a sign that said Video Club opening. Now, you have to remember it was 1980, and MTV literally just started.
Yeah.
So I walked into the building, and I looked around, and if you know anything about that building, it's a beautiful Art Deco building inside. There was a man in the balcony, and he's like, "Kid, what do you want? We're not open yet." And I said, "Well, I love the look of this place and the Video Club. I think I want to work here."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, do you have a resume?" I said, "No, I don't have a resume. I just go to school." And I don't know, he just found something humorous about that. So he called me up into his office, and we talked about music, and we talked about everything from the Great American Songbook to contemporary music, things that are on the radio. I did most of the talking when it came to punk rock and heavy metal. And he just liked what I had to say.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "You know what? I'm going to hire you. You're going to get my lunch, you're going to answer my phone, and you're going to open my mail." I was 19 years old, and I thought, wow, I guess I'm in the music business. And, my whole life I wanted to be in the music business. And growing up, I bought 45 records. I watched Dick Clark's American Bandstand. I watched Don Cornelius's Soul Train. I also watched Don Kirshner's rock concert and the Midnight Special. And all of that informed my listening. Mm-hmm. And that's a wide variety of listening from, Todd Rundgren to Alabama to David Bowie to James Brown. So I was informed about music at a very early age. I walked in, there was Jerry Brandt. We got along, and he just gave a kid a break from Brooklyn.
Were you always that outgoing? Like, were
yes.
you fearless?
Yes.
That you would walk in and do that?
I had no fear ever about anything. Even when I was walking to the Bowery to see something at CBGB at 11 o'clock at night, I'm shocked, and I don't really remember how this happened, that my mom let me go out. I think it was because I did well in school, but you have to think in 1975 what the Bowery was like. It was scary.
Yeah, I've heard.
And I usually went to these places by myself. I just got on the train and got there. No fear. I didn't even think about it. I just wanted to go hear the music.
Yeah, it's weird too when someone's young. Like, youth can bring naivete.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
But it could also bring like an undue confidence. And I kind of feel like you're a little bit more on, like you said, fearless, a little bit more on the confident side, but a little bit of that naivety to just be like, I'm going to go do this.
I guess also, and I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but when one has confidence at an early age like that, you're not thinking about being naive. I think you think about being naive in retrospect.
Right.
Like, wow, I must have been, never mind naive,
Yeah.
I must have been crazy
Right,
to wander around the Bowery and walk up those side streets at 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then not get back on the B train till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I just wanted to go where the music was.
Right.
And I found that music by looking at the Village Voice and a couple other music publications. And I was on my way.
That's what I love about your story, because for someone like me, like I'm a sponge, like George will tell you. I could talk to you about Johnny Cash, Slayer. I could talk to you about like everything from like Morbid Angel to like Gangstar, you know? Yeah. To hear you growing up and kind of feeling the same way, was there any like type of music that you actually didn't like?
I don't know if I thought about that at a young age, because at a young age I was listening to AM radio, and AM radio back then was not heavily formatted. And because it wasn't heavily formatted, everything was on the radio. You know, I would listen to Dan Ingram at 77 WABC, and he would play everything from Aretha Franklin to Grand Funk to Archie Bell and the Drells to I can't even think, but it was a wide variety of music. So I wasn't thinking about what I didn't like. I was just grateful that I was getting to hear a wide variety of music. I think as one gets older, you're more discerning about, oh, I know what I like and what I don't like.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, recently I just tried going to the opera. So I go see Wagner's Parsifal. Little do I know that it's 6 hours long. It's the last thing he ever wrote. So I was wondering why they were saying, get here at 6:00 to Lincoln Center. So I'm there, and they say that there's going to be 3 intermissions. And I'm thinking, 3 intermissions? So I asked the lady next to me, 3 intermissions? She said, yes, we'll probably be getting out of here at midnight. So after that, I went to 2 more operas, and I decided my ears really are not attuned to that sound. So I guess you could say I'm not really a big fan of opera.
For sure. And for me, as I got older, what I realized, maybe in like my 30s, because I'm someone who still likes new music. So
me too.
When like today, like on Fridays, I always wait for like I have Spotify, that's what I use, and I always have a release radar. So they always give me like 20 albums that just came out, and I listen to them at work because I have a lot of time to kill.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great function. And I hit play, and sometimes that's how I could tell you, like, I think Cardi B's awesome, because I hit play on certain things that I feel like people my age don't care about new music anymore, which is fine. But to me, like, it's like, how could you not want it, And
one is either passionate about music or not. It's like when I say to people, what are you listening to on your headset? And they'll say, oh, I listen to a lot of stuff. It's not a good answer to me, because really they're not really that passionate music lover that we all might be here.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah, I was actually at a show last night, and I will be going to see the Misfits tomorrow. But last night I went to go see this band called Idols. I don't know if you know them.
Nope.
Oh my God. I saw them at Terminal 5. They're one of the best bands of the last 5 years for me, and their live set.
Wait a minute, Idols?
Yeah.
And they play Terminal 5?
Sold it out.
Oh my Lord, what kind of music?
It's almost like Drive Like JU at the drive-in, and they're from like the UK. It's very chaotic. It's the most punk rock band that I felt since listening to At the Drive-In, or like it's just ferocious.
Oh,
like I'll send you the link.
Well, that's a good
it's
word.
Unreal.
Okay.
So like I'm still in there. Like I'm very passionate about it. I wanted to ask you before, when you listen to the music that you said of your youth, a lot of times these songs, like if I hear REM's Night Swimming, I get brought back to when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear certain songs, do you remember like 77 New York? Do you get brought right back there?
Well, I think when somebody asks me about reminiscing, I think one of the first things that come to my mind is Alice Cooper, because when I was 13, that was the first concert I went to. And, can you imagine a 13-year-old coming into the city? My cousin's boyfriend took me, and you walk into an 18,000 seat place. Now, I had seen Alice Cooper once late night in concert, and I kind of knew what I was going to be in store for, but not really. So once the band opened up with Hello Hooray and all that theatricality on stage, I was hooked. But I don't think I answered your question correctly.
No, but anyway. It's great because Alice Cooper, I feel, is almost like I feel like he's the prototype to everything. Like you pointed to Rob Zombie, White
Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson. Yeah. There are so many people who owe a debt to Alice Cooper. And, I just saw him about 2 years ago at the Beacon Theater. It's the same show, and I love every single moment of it. There's the guillotine. There's the snake. I mean, there's the platform leopard boots, and it all still works for me. There is nothing that doesn't work for me in regards to Alice Cooper.
And he did one of those things, like he had his 70s stuff, and then later on, once he did that song on the Friday the 13th soundtrack, I felt like it was kind of stagnant. But in '89, he met up with Desmond Child, and they did Trash.
Oh, that's right.
Which was such a huge record, and he reinvented himself. And then he did the same thing. Like every 10 years, he does something where he just reinvents himself, and then a whole new audience comes in, and
sure.
He plays for like the next 10 years. It's amazing. So, and the Shep Gordon documentary on Netflix was amazing. Right. His manager.
They've been together on a handshake for over 40 years. Yeah. No contracts, no nothing. Yeah. That doesn't happen at all, ever, hardly. Yeah,
pretty incredible.
Yes, it is.
And I was thinking too, when I'm hearing your story, and since we're sort of talking about those years like 70s, 80s. Everybody knows New York City was a violent time, like downtown, and what was going on. And you stepped into all of that. Also, I can relate a little bit more to New York hardcore down in the late 80s and early 90s.
Sure.
Even the shows were super violent. You seem to be someone who can kind of go anywhere, kind of do anything, and never really seem to have that type of trouble. What do you attribute that to?
You mean like my charming personality?
I guess it's your charming personality, but
I don't know. You know what? I'm teasing.
You seem to float in and out and never have those issues.
I know how to maneuver in lots of different circumstances. I don't know how that happened. I guess because I have always been outgoing and I love people. So, whether I'm in the throes of a heavy metal concert, or if I'm or when I was at Sunday matinees at CB's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just talk to everybody. They talk to me, and I've never had problems with people, really. When people think, oh, well, when you go to some of these shows, there are people who are homophobic. That doesn't bother me at all. I've never had a problem.
Right.
Like I grab people by the effing shoulders, and if I think they're going to be saying shit to me, and I diffuse that really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how, but I just do.
But it's also, too, like I noticed there's a certain thing, like authenticity breeds a certain amount of like invincibility, right?
Sure.
Like we were talking about on the way here, we have friends who are like tough guys, right? Like true tough guys.
Yeah.
They don't bother with people who are just themselves. Like we don't act like more tough. They start fucking with the guys who are acting tough. So if you walk into a situation and you're trying to be like them, which is a mistake that young people do. It's like, growing up, you really didn't do that. You were yourself. You walked in, and that authenticity gives you like it's not foolproof, but it can be a cloak of invincibility.
No, I mean, I didn't have any other references about who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I just felt like, for the most part, I don't think I was ever in the closet. I just always thought from a very early age that people are either going to like you or they're not going to like you.
Yeah.
And the people that aren't going to like you, well, don't bother me none.
Yeah.
Because there's more other people that are going to like me out there than that. So, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't get wrapped up in that type of stuff.
No, never.
And it translates to what you did as an A&R, because especially with, everything from metal, hardcore, musicians in general have a distrust for the record label, a distrust for the A&R guy, especially from the New York scene that we were in. But they didn't have that with you.
Well, I can only say that I go back to always telling the truth. I never signed anything that I didn't believe in. Like if I heard, oh my God, all those A&R people are going after so-and-so.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? So-and-so, even though everybody was saying they were going to be big, if it didn't appeal to me, I just didn't bother because I couldn't live with myself. I want to sign artists that I feel have something to say that I can relate to so that I know how to make great music with them. Signing someone just because everyone says they're going to be big never worked for me.
Yeah.
So if I signed fewer artists than most A&R people do, well, you know what? That's okay.
Right.
Because you know what? For 25 years, I don't know, I kind of did a great job. And, some of the people that I worked with, Metallica, they changed the course and the landscape of music, not just heavy metal, just music overall.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes, I'd be making a Metallica record and then the phone rings and it's John Lydon. So two totally different animals, both fabulous. Metallica always have something to say. John Lydon certainly always has something to say. But, because I believed in the artists that I signed, I never had a problem working with them. So it's just juggling a lot of thoughts, a lot of making lots of notes about what I was doing.
What was the feeling like when you hear like Kill 'Em All? Like what? Like you hear Kill 'Em All? Did it just like immediately like you knew that something?
There was so many things converging for me in 1983 and 1984
because nothing was like that in '83.
No, that record came out on Megaforce Records, and Johnny Z. At some point, I became friends with John, and he's a great colleague of mine, and I think I am of his. But also at that point in time, in the early 80s and maybe around 83, that little demo of Metallica was going around to all the metal underground. So I had heard that. I had heard Kill 'Em All. And keep in mind, I'm so new at my job, I didn't know what to do, except all I knew was I never heard anything like this before.
Yeah.
It wasn't like traditional heavy metal. They knew how to mix speed, traditional hard rock, heavy metal, punk into this one stew that they called Metallica. And there's never been anybody else like them. A lot of people want to duplicate it because it's the gold standard of heavy metal, but nobody has been able to. But you asked me about Kill 'Em All. Well, it's one of the greatest records ever. Never doesn't sound like anything else.
Yeah.
Nothing else has ever sounded like that. Years later,
what were those early shows like?
Oh, they were relentless. These were young people who always knew what they wanted. Even at some point when they were called Alcoholica, they went up there and literally killed it every night. I always thought they were focused. They were young. James is a ringleader on stage. He's very charming and very charismatic. Now, that charm and charismatic was very raw in 1983 and 84. Mm-hmm. But here we are. It's 2019. We're still talking about them over 35 years later.
Amazing.
And again, they are a different animal than they were back in the day. And ain't it something how they grew up?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like for a band like that, when you really think of the sound, and even like the big four to begin with, like, Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, the fact that sound actually broke out of the underground is insane. Especially Metallica could play a planet, you know what I'm saying? Like, and people would just go,
yeah,
and it's unreal. And they had their peaks and valleys. I love all their records, but when you have that much of a catalog, like where else are you going to go? You making Justice for All? Obviously, you're going to make the Black Album because where else do you go from there? Slayer did Rain and Blood. Obviously, you're going to do South of Heaven after.
One of the greatest records ever.
I think so too. Even though
I loved when I saw them at Roseland. I don't know what year it was. When did that come out? Rain and Blood.
Rain and Blood was '86.
That early?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord! I remember seeing them at Roseland. They played whatever their set was, and then the encore was the whole album.
28 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well, not bad. 28-minute encore. You got your money's worth. I'm sure the tickets were only $10 too.
And I'm sure, and it's crazy when you think of like Rick Rubin. Like,
yes.
What else did he do besides like hip hop? And he takes on, he starts Deaf American, and they believe in him to make this thrash record, which arguably, aside from Master of Puppets, like you can go back and forth, are the two greatest thrash records of all time.
What?
Master and Rain and Blood.
Oh gosh, yes.
Like those, it's amazing. Like you see.
But when you think about it, Master of Puppets is not really a thrash record. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think of it like that.
I'm going on Magazine.
I think the first two albums are Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. I don't know.
I'll throw it in there because
fine.
Aside from like Sanitarium and the thing that should not be, like as a kid. What made me?
Well, I guess when you hear like "Fight Fire with Fire." Oh wait, is that on?
No, that's Ride the Lightning.
Ride the Lightning.
But let me tell you, as a kid, my two biggest guitar influences, and my band sounds nothing like these two, but one was Greg Ginn from Black Flag, and the other was Kirk Hammett. Like, he would play these solos, and 10-year-old me. So me and my cousin were in Queens, and I was 10, she was 9, and she had this long hair, and we would watch the video to One because it was 88. And when that breakdown came and like the double bass came and their hair started going up and down, my cousin, who's a girl, she had this longer hair and I didn't. And I had the biggest hair envy because when I got to the headbanging part, like her hair was just like doing this wave. And yeah, from that moment on, like Metallica was like gods. Like to me, like I was just like, and my band sounds nothing like that whatsoever. Like I'll probably get hate mail for even saying that Kirk Hammett's an influence, but you know, fantastic.
Oh, everybody has to have influences, and how wonderful it's him.
And how it comes out. You know, like you get like Nirvana were influenced by the Pixies, but they don't sound like the Pixies.
Nothing like them.
Same thing. I told you, Modest Mouse said the same thing. So it's like we take these influences and they go through your filter. That's what makes it yours. So, you know, why did you never play music?
Yeah,
I have no idea. I always loved the idea of playing piano, but I just never got around to it. I got busy doing other things.
Oh, yeah, you did.
And people dream of being rock stars. They don't dream of being in the music industry, which is almost never hear it. Music people...
Well, I just knew I did, like I said, at 14, I had no idea what that meant. Yeah. But I knew from watching all of these music shows on TV and listening to the radio, I thought, well, what can I do? And I never had that thought of, I'm going to write songs. Well, you know, I did play in a band for 1 minute, but we don't even have to talk about that.
No, it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Oh, really?
No, I don't
know. Oh, God, I would be
Maybe.
mortified. No. It was more like trying to figure out what is it that I'm going to do because I'm so inspired by all of this music that I've been hearing.
Right.
So,
what was the name of the band?
Multiple Exposure.
Okay.
Yeah. We played in Long Island all the time.
Oh, that's our home.
That's...
Oh, God. But I'm going back so long. There was a place called the Empty Can.
The good old Empty Can.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know
Shout
you're
out
lying.
to the Empty
I know
Can.
you're lying now. Anyway, so where are we? Let's see. Yeah, so at some point in time after I thought, well, I don't know, I'm just not going to learn how to play the piano, I got busy because at 19, I got that job at the Ritz and full speed ahead, on the job training.
Yeah, that's great too.
You know, and another thing too that's just popping into my head, like, you got a lot of books in here. Do you ever read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
I have not.
You know the book I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
In there's a thing that she talks about. They're called shadow artists, right? And what they are is people that surround the artist, but they're sort of artists themselves. And they never really got to realize that vision of whatever it is, being a painter, being a singer. So they become a manager. They become somewhere around it. And there's some type of friction. And that's why it's named shadow artist. It's not a good thing. With you, you're not a shadow artist because it's a great book.
No, I know.
Writing.
Everyone talks about that book. Yeah.
And you're not a shadow artist. And I think that the music industry probably has a lot of that. And that's probably how you could sort of stand out and get confidence from artists, because you're an artist in itself, like real recognize real.
Right.
You know?
And, you know, like I never looked like a record company executive.
Yeah.
I would always go to shows in my jeans and T-shirts and leather jacket. So, you know, like when I went backstage at Roseland, summer of 1984, Lars knew who I was because I had met him once when I was at the Stone in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. But all the other guys were like, who is this person barging into our room? We just got off stage. We're sweating. We're towel drying our heads. Yeah. And Lars was like, guys, that's Michael Alago from Elektra Records. So like it almost like the world almost stopped for all of us for that minute. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was just going off on not even on a tangent, but just I was so excited about what I had just heard. And I was convincing enough that they came to my office the next day. We sat in the conference room. We had Chinese food and beer. I gave them every bit of vinyl and cassettes that they wanted. Remember, it's 1984. And I almost feel like they never left my office after that.
where you were speaking the language of a young touring band: Chinese food, beer, and free vinyl and cassettes.
Correct.
That's-
And listen, maybe I was 2 or 3 years older than
Yeah,
them. So if they
yeah.
were 21, I was 23, 24 years old.
Yeah.
So we all related to each other on that level. I wasn't I worked at a corporate company. Elektra is part of Time Warner, but I was not a corporate person.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of the artists relate to me.
If you're into the same shit that everyone's into, you just don't feel like, it's not like some suit that's like trying to talk to you about like, I don't know, someone from someone like 10 years after or something,
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like my dream job would have been an A&R completely. So when I think of what an A&R does, and I'm completely wrong. So this is my question. I just picture you basically go out every night and you go to live shows and you check out bands. And I'm talking about from the, I guess 83 on.
Sure.
And you just constantly are swamped by cassettes and live music. So how far off am I?
Oh, not at all.
Sounds like your life.
It's funny because after my 3 years at the Ritz, I knew there was more, but I didn't know what that more meant. So I was seeing someone named Mitchell, and he said, my dad is Bob Krasnow, and he's leaving Warner Brothers to re-up Elektra because previous management just threw it in the crapper, and they really had to, as they say, shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
So I met with Bob Krasnow, who is now the new chairman of Elektra, and I had that same conversation with him that I had with Jerry Brandt. I was a 22-year-old kid. We talked about music, and we talked for about an hour, and we talked about art, because Bob was a big art maven, and I loved art myself. I would always go to art galleries. So there was like an initial connection that was about both music and art. So after that hour meeting was over, he said, I'll get back to you. So I was a nervous wreck. And I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks later that his office called and they said, we're going to give you a job here at Elektra. Good luck.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, but what am I going to do? So Bob said, you're going to be in the A&R department. So of course I didn't have the nerve to say, what does A&R mean?
Right.
So I took the job. So I had to ask him, I said, artist and repertoire. And Bob
You didn't Google it?
No, there was no Google.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But also Bob, being the new chairman there, he was very generous with his time with me. Because again, I was in his office hearing him talk to lawyers, managers, artists, independent labels looking for major distribution. And I was a sponge and I took all that in. So I don't know if it was a year later, a couple of months later, he would just say, talk to Michael Alago. And, so like you just asked me, Sam, there were tons of cassettes that came my way every single day. There were boxes of things I had to listen to. I had 2 wonderful assistants, this woman named Tony and a gentleman named Keith. They still are marvelous people, and I still speak to them. But, they got a sense of who I was instantly. So Tony, how we found out about a lot of bands were either through the corporate way of lawyers and managers coming to see me, or what I did was I picked newspapers from my favorite cities like Toronto, Montreal, Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco, Austin, Dallas, Boston, Atlanta, New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, and we would cut out anything that sounded interesting in the music section of those newspapers.
Right.
And we would telephone people, and either I would telephone them or Tony would call them and say, we're calling you from Elektra Records, and could you please send us this EP that we were reading about?
Yeah.
So I found out a lot about a lot of bands through a very homegrown way.
Yeah.
And, over the years, I heard lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
But, good ain't great. And if you tried signing every good thing, you'd be overwhelmed.
Right.
And nothing great would get done.
Right.
So I chose to be very, very specific about the things that I signed.
Yeah.
And lucky for me, Elektra Records overall was like that, and this is not to sound like snobbish or anything, but we didn't play follow the leader.
Yeah.
We were the leaders, whether it was signing someone like Anita Baker, Motley Crue,
Crue's on
Tracy
there.
Chapman, Metallica, they all had some kind of identity
Right.
going into getting signed.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful thing.
You weren't playing catch up.
Oh,
Like,
never,
we have to-
never.
No.
And there was a beauty about that, and that same beauty existed when I left to go work at Geffen Records. Geffen Records was a boutique label, distributed through through a corporation,
Okay.
and they acted like a small label, but they were anything but small.
Absolutely.
Because
Huge.
when I got there, I signed Kane Roberts, I signed White Zombie, and who else was getting signed there? Sonic Youth, Beck,
Yes, that's right.
Guns N' Roses, Cher,
Nirvana.
Whitesnake, Nirvana. I mean, it was marvelous.
Yeah.
And, you can't say any of those people were not originals.
Right.
that was-
So there were great A&R people there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Those were the two tops for sure. I remember buying cassettes as a kid. Electra for sure because of the Crew and Metallica, and then Geffen, and like later on when I got into like Use Your Illusion or like especially Sonic Youth. Like I remember buying the Dirty cassette, and that like Sonic Youth Dirty like changed my life because it came at a time where I guess the 80s stuff was kind of dying out. And Nirvana came out, but Nirvana was cool. But then, like, I saw the year that punk broke, 1991, that videotape.
Yeah.
And the band that blew me away the most was Sonic Youth, because I was a guitar player, but I'm like, how the fuck are they doing that with those guitars? Like, I couldn't comprehend their song structures.
Well, talk about somebody that doesn't sound like anybody else ever.
Yeah.
Nor could anyone even dream of sounding like them.
Yeah.
Very special musicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very special.
Now,
But just, when, I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you, when David Geffen started Geffen Records in, I think, maybe 1980, the first artists.
80.
Well, we can look it up.
Okay.
But the first three artists he signed were Donna Summer, Elton John, and John Lennon.
Yeah.
Very special.
And then in 82, because I think...
So wait,
Yeah.
maybe it's a little earlier than
Yeah.
80
Right.
because
Yeah.
John was killed, I think, December
December,
of 1980.
Yeah.
And they were coming home to the Dakota.
Yeah.
And he had, I think, the tape of Walking on Thin Ice under his arm.
Wow.
They didn't know at first if they were going to put it on the album or not. It's such a long story, and I don't want to not tell the story, but I tell a really good story in my book about that night because I knew so many people, from David Geffen to people who were there at the recording studio that evening, were friends with John and Yoko, about that horrible evening. I mean, talk about a night that changed the whole entire world, whether you loved music or not.
Right.
It's like this wonderful, passionate human being gets murdered.
In a bizarre way, such a violent death.
Well, didn't he, Chapman, ask for his autograph?
There's a picture of him giving his autograph.
That's right.
There was like a photographer that took it, and then on his way back,
Unbelievable.
Catch you in the Rye thing.
Very
Yeah.
surreal. Terrible.
Yeah.
Awful.
I wanted to ask you about this. Like,
Yes, please.
being an A&R, like I could see how it's clear in your documentary, like you didn't see eye to eye with the label. They let you do what you want, and you had a good relationship with them. You were more for the artist.
Always.
Did you have times where you didn't see eye to eye with the artist? Maybe they wanted to do something that you didn't think was a good idea, or vice versa. And how would you handle
Or
that?
sometimes, artists, once they start making a record, they can become very impatient.
Yeah.
But say we made, I don't know. But, when you make a record and the artist thinks it's finished,
Right.
and it's not, because if somebody happens to be an artist that you need to get on the radio and everything on the record is really good, but if you had that 10th, 11th, or 12th song that made the record great, then you would really have a terrific beginning, middle, and end to an album. Once I was finished with an album, I would take the record into a marketing meeting, which probably happened every Wednesday, and there would be publicity people there, radio promotion people, marketing people, other A&R people, and everybody would talk about the album. And sometimes what came up was, there's not a single here.
Right.
And, when I had to go back and tell an artist that, They usually were not happy.
Right.
You know, I'm sure a lot of curse words went flying back and forth.
Right.
But you know what? I think in the end, most of the time, they were grateful to have to look at the record again and go, you know what? We do need this one song.
Yeah.
You know, because I always talk about records being, or having a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
Something that's taking the audience on a journey.
Yeah.
And then when you're done with that journey, hopefully we're all satisfied.
Mm-hmm. But I could just, you hear all the stories of, record company people are shady.
Yeah, like Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
Number 4080.
So you hear a lot of friction. That's usually, but you're still friends with these artists. You still have relationships.
You saw it in the documentary.
Yeah.
You know, listen, I met John Lydon in 1981 when I was at the Ritz. I asked Pill to play because Bow Wow Wow canceled. Yeah. Malcolm McLaren called and said, Michael, I'm not coming. I said, what do you mean you're not coming? He said, well, Annabella's underage and her mom won't let her come. I said, you know what? You better get on that plane.
Yeah.
We gave you a 50% deposit and we'll pay for Annabella's mother to get here. And he said, well, we're not coming. And I had to think real quick what we were going to do about a Friday and Saturday night at a nightclub in New York City.
Yeah.
Now we don't have any entertainment.
Right.
I don't know where I found out that Pill were in New York doing publicity for Flowers of Romance. Okay. So I think I called Liz Rosenberg, the head of publicity at Warner Brothers, and I gave some kind of convoluted story. But the next thing you know, I had John, Jeanette, and Keith in my office, in Jerry Brandt's office at the Ritz, saying, you know what? You got to save us. I know we don't know each other, but you know what? You'll love the room. You'll love the sound of the room. We have this 30-foot screen. And little did I know that was going to be the bane of my evening, that 30-foot screen.
Wish you left that part out, right?
Well, so they decided, sure, we're going to play. And but they wanted to do something like a performance art piece. Yeah. Well, first of all, people were coming to see Bow Wow Wow. So I think what I had to do was I called Larry the Duck on WLIR. Yeah. And I said, Larry, you know what? Bow Wow Wow canceled. I'm going to give you 25 pairs of tickets and just let everybody know that Pill are going to play. Right. So that wound up being a sold out 2 nights as well. We never did a second night. That evening, there was a lot of tension in the air because I think they started late, and Flowers of Romance was on a tape, and they're behind a screen, and there are these floodlights just showing black silhouettes on the screen, which looked really beautiful, but nobody gave a damn about how beautiful it looked. People were really there to see Johnny Rotten in action, and he wasn't giving them that. Right. So after maybe about 18 minutes, beer bottles started flying, chairs, and we had to stop the whole entire show. Yeah. But it was quite the event. Yeah. And, that night it was on the 11 o'clock news. It was like a performance. It was a show that was heard all around the world. Yeah. I think the next few days he was on the cover of the New Musical Express, Sounds, and what was the other? Melody Maker, as, the Riot, the Public Image Riot. Well, that's how I met John. And right after the show, I went into the dressing room and we laughed about the whole thing.
Was he pissed or
he laughed about it. We continued drinking and whatnot. And it was a bit scary. Jerry Brandt was not happy with the situation. But me, I wanted them to come back the next night. Right. But, security had gotten hit with bottles and chairs and stuff. And nobody was smiling. Right. And you got to keep in mind also, in 1981, security really didn't know how to deal with young people wanting to climb on the stage, pogo, or jump off the stage and somebody would catch them. Right. That wasn't like a real thing back then. Yeah. So it was mayhem. Yeah. It was mayhem, but I loved it. Yeah. And we stayed in touch. And at some point, I knew John was looking for a label. Yeah. So Bob Krasnow and I had multiple meetings with him. He got signed to Elektra for a very expensive deal. Mm-hmm. I became his A&R person. He made that album album,
Yeah.
With Steve Vai and Ginger Baker and all these fabulous people.
Yeah.
And, the poster said poster, the
Yeah.
cassette, the generic
Fantastic,
record,
yeah.
fabulous
Yeah.
record.
Metal Box. It
Well,
like,
that
yeah.
was not our record, though. Metal Box was like the first thing ever that they did.
Oh, I thought that was part of that marketing.
No.
thing.
It was just album.
Right.
That was our record, and it did okay.
Yeah.
But while we were marketing and promoting it, I knew that he had 2 other records out that Virgin was not putting out in the United States. This Is What You Want, This Is What You Get,
Mhm.
and Live in Tokyo. So I picked those 2 records up for the U.S. and Canada.
Mhm.
As the year went on, maybe the following year, sales were not happening.
Mhm.
So Elektra decided that they were going to release him from his contract.
Okay.
He was certainly not happy about that.
Yeah.
But we remained friends. Now, here it is. That was 85 and 86.
Okay.
Here it is, 2019. I don't think John and I ever had a bad word with each other.
Really?
Yes. 38 years.
Wow.
Never had a bad word. And during the downtime when I would go see Pill on the road,
Yeah.
fast forward yet again to around 2013, I called John and I said, there's a film being made about me. Would you be in the documentary?
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you could see in the film, he really comes off very loving.
Yeah.
And people are like, wait a minute. He's never like that in interviews. Well, if you're not a smart person and you continue to ask him about the Sex Pistols
Yeah.
and
Right.
stuff that's not relevant present day,
Mhm.
he's going to get pissy with you.
Right.
Because you know what? John's brilliant.
Mm.
He could talk about everything and anything. And when he walks in the room, he sometimes is the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're still friends right now. He has a documentary coming out called The Public Image is Rotten. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in that film.
Okay.
He's in my
I
film.
think it's out. It's not out yet?
Well, I think they had some small
premieres, yeah.
premieres,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they found proper distribution for
Okay.
it yet. But, he is one of my favorite people in the music business,
Wow.
and I just simply adore him.
Yeah.
I have
expect
nothing
that, yeah.
bad to say about him
Yeah.
at all.
I love now.
Ever.
I love now that there's so many things getting made, like documentaries on people that we've grown up with,
Mhm.
and places like Amazon or like Netflix. They stream this stuff, and it kind of fills in a lot of the blanks and stuff. To
Oh,
all this
sure.
stuff. So
I mean, it's incredible that places like Amazon Prime and Netflix and
Hulu.
Google.
Yeah,
I bring up Google only because kids would say, "Wow, I wish I could have seen the Dead Boys when you saw the Dead Boys." Now, it's not going to be the same experience, but you go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And you click Dead Boys 1977, and you're going to get a killer performance. And like I said, it's not the same. But, people in the 70s had the good sense of taping stuff. And sometimes the stuff is not primo quality.
Right.
But I love seeing the Plasmatics
Me
and Dead Boys and all this stuff that was going on in the 70s.
question real quick, because so White Zombie
Yes.
is an interesting thing.
They are.
Because they were around for a while, grinding in New York City.
Yeah.
And then obviously they got signed to Geffen. What is it about them? Because according to Rob, he says that they weren't very good, but they had a look, and their live shows were interesting. So what was it about them that just made you want to do that?
What made them great?
Yeah.
In your mind?
Well, my friend Daniel Ray, musician, producer of the Ramones and Iggy, and he was in the Masters of Reality, great guitar player. At that point in time, he was working with a number of bands, Circus of Power,
Oh, yeah?
Raging Slab, and White Zombie.
Wow.
Now, he got
Throwbacks.
Throwbacks is right. Well, we're talking about
Yeah, Hit
another
Parader
time.
magazine
Hello.
galore.
We're talking about a different
For sure.
time period.
I just got blasted with the Raging Slab promo.
Oh, come on. Fabulous. They are great. Anyway, so Daniel's working with these 3 bands. Raging Slab and Circus of Power both got signed to RCA, but nobody wanted to sign White Zombie. So Daniel also is a person I know right this minute for 39 years. I signed his band Shrapnel to Elektra in 1983, when I first got there. They made an EP, didn't do so well. we stayed friends. In any event, so Daniel said, you know what? I got these 2 bands signed to RCA, but nobody wants to sign White Zombie. Will you come with me to see them? Absolutely. So I went to, there's still a restaurant in the East Village called Indochine, and it's on Lafayette Street, right near the Public Theater, off St. Mark's Place. And they were under Indochine. I think it was called Under Indochine. I don't know. It was a black box, if you ask me. And I mean, it had no character, no nothing. It was like going into your friend's basement or something. Yeah. And I say this in the film too, in the corner, in the back, in the dark, on a stage that might have been 6 inches off the floor, were these people grinding out noise. And like I said back then, I don't know if they were great then, but it interested me. I liked what they looked like. Nobody else looked like them as far as I was concerned. And there was just something in them. Also, they all had that wild charisma about them. And I thought to myself, I love these people. And you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet, but I'm signing them. And, you know, Rob even talks about it in the movie. He said, you know, Michael signed us. I think he signed us based on a riff that he liked. And I think it was true. There was a riff that they had. And I said, we got to make these songs because they weren't songs. And I signed them. And, that's another group that, you know, you can say, and the rest is history. Yeah. So once, you know, there's an interesting story that I don't know, for some reason I don't tell too often because maybe nobody asks. We were going to go in the studio with Jim Thirlwell. Do you know about him? Jim Thirlwell makes records under the name Fetus. You've got fetus on your breath. Fetus uber alles. Fetus under glass. Yes, Jim Thirlwell. Okay. Fabulous Australian musician who lived in Brooklyn. And he made the White Zombie demos for me, for Geffen. And they were excellent. They were excellent. Those demos, you know, if you have the White Zombie box set, I think those demos might be on there. Don't quote me. We might have to bootleg it. What do I know?
It might be on YouTube.
Yeah. Hit us up.
Right, exactly. So, Rob has an ego. Jim has an ego. And it just didn't work out. So I was back to square one a little bit, except that I had signed them already. Now, we all love the sound of Slayer records, and Andy Wallace made those records. So we decided we're going to hire Andy Wallace to make the first White Zombie record, El Sexorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. He made that record, and it's a friggin' great record. And that also, when it came out, didn't sound like anybody else either. So, I mean, there's a funny story attached to that, too, that I tell all the time. But if you want to hear it.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, let's go. So we make this record. Everybody at Geffen in L.A., because that's where the label was based. I was in New York in a satellite office. We make this record. Everyone has high hopes for this record. You know, I'm saying, a million seller, and I'm bragging. And 1 week, it stalled at 180,000 units. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, how am I going to show my face to the band, to the executives on the West Coast? And, you know, sometimes things just happen out of the blue. Yeah. So these 2 little crazy characters named Beavis and Butthead decided,
you're right.
Fire, that White Zombie were going to be their favorite group. And they started playing the heck out of the single. What? 1965.
Yeah.
Thunderkiss, 1965. And what happened was the amount of times that they played that thing. Because everybody was watching MTV then. It catapulted that record.
Beavis and Butthead were like kingmakers. And let me tell you, here's a funny story.
Well, wait. It catapulted that record to 1 million units. And from there, it just kept selling. Because now, if you will, it's in the mainstream.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, for sure. Like all right, so my band made a record in 2010.
Okay, listen, you keep bringing up your band. What's your band called?
Oh, you'll never know.
Tell me now, because you've been bragging. Like, no, Michael, when are you going to ask me what the name of my band is?
Oh, you still...
no, please tell me.
We're on Elektra.
Playing Dead.
Playing Dead.
And do you still perform?
Yeah, we just put out an EP.
Get out.
Yeah.
5 songs?
We actually, I'll get to that. Like, I had 12 songs.
But this
like,
is not about you. I just happen to be asking.
Oh, yeah.
So how many songs are on there?
This one has 4 in particular.
4. Did you produce it yourselves? I'm asking the
yes,
questions.
of course.
And so is he.
Yeah.
You're just taping
for
and
sure.
sometimes putting your 2 cents in.
Yes.
Which I love because you're so smart.
Okay.
So, Play Dead. Playing Dead,
yeah.
4-song EP.
Yes.
Did you put it out yourselves?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did you produce it yourselves?
Yes.
And when are you playing next? In New York City, for instance?
New York City, we're playing. When are we playing? We're playing in Nassau next month, and then I'm doing like a solo show also.
Solo?
Yeah.
You mean like solo acoustic?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're so talented, I guess. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't know that till I come see you. And now, enough from the Peanut Gallery.
But I want to say
now
like,
he's
so
not going to shut up.
We made a
Sam.
record. We made a record, and at the end of the record, for some reason, I would always play that Thunder Kiss riff.
Okay.
And at the end of the record, if you listen to the last song and wait till it ends, you hear.
Oh, how fabulous!
Yeah, it's
well, at least you sourced a fabulous record. George, please continue, because I don't know what's going on with Sam right now.
I want to talk about your book.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Rumor has it.
Yeah.
You have a memoir coming out.
I do. You know, the beauty of that documentary, which got picked up, again, like we said, for another year, is that some publishing companies came around that I met with. And this little company I liked the most called Backbeat Books. Okay. And again, they knew about my history. So when I had conversations with them, they were already informed about me. And I liked that they did their homework. Okay. So I made a little book. Yeah. And it's like the answer back to who the fuck is that guy? It's called I Am Michael Alago. Okay. And the subtitle is Breathing Music, Signing Metallica, Beating Death. It's strong. I wrote it with, I had a co-writer because I have such a scatterbrain that sometimes I don't even know if I could have gotten through it.
It takes
I can't imagine what it takes.
Focus.
Focus.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I made it with a co-writer. Her name is Laura Davis Chanin. Okay. She also put out a book through Backbeat called The Girl in the Back. Okay. She was the drummer for a band in 1979 called the Student Teachers. Okay. But her book is a very short, spanned book. It's about her time in the Student Teachers, her living with Jimmy Destry from Blondie, and it's about Bowie. And it's a fantastic little book. I think Billboard named it last year's top 10 rock and roll books of the year. Anyway, I don't have that discipline. Yeah. I need help. Right. So the thing that I did that I forgot until I got the book deal is I have journals.
Really?
From when I'm 16 years old. Till right now.
You forgot you had this.
Well, I just didn't. I just thought, we're going to do the book. Yeah. And then I went, oh my God, I don't even remember half of my life. No, I'm like brain dead sometimes. And I went, oh my God. So I went in the closet, the only time I was ever in the closet, so to speak. Yeah. And I pulled out all these journals. Yeah. And it brought back memories of things, honest to God, I did not remember. And then, of course, I had to call friends and say, did we really do that? And, you know, those journals in the early days were not really artistic or poetic. Mm-hmm. It was basically went to Great Gildersleeve, saw a black flag, caught the late night set at, 2 a.m. of so-and-so at CB's. It was basically listings of everything that I did growing up until it did become poetic, until it did become, artistic, some of the writings. So it took us, it didn't really take us long. It took us 2.5 years to put the book together. Laura has trouble getting around because she has MS. Okay. So what we decided was the best way to do this was she'd either come to me or I'd go to her place. But for the most of it, we spoke online. Mm-hmm. So we Skyped. Okay. And we Skyped like sometimes 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, never mind that on being on the computer 8 hours a day, your eyes are burning, remembering your life when you're 58, 59 years old and you're going back to 14. Right. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of going back. Sure. And, my head hurt after all of that. Mm-hmm. Trying to remember one's whole life when you haven't had to do that probably ever, unless, you're with a bunch of friends and you're reminiscing about Lemoore one night and, walking there and dragging your tired ass home fully drunk. And sometimes your mom, if you still lived at home, has to put you to bed even though there's vomit all over the floor. But yeah, when I got the book deal, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. So I got a co-writer. I hadn't seen Laura for 30 years, and we had lunch. We got along, and she helped me with the book. But like I said earlier, and maybe this is the part you'll use, is that the book really had to sound like me.
Right.
Because a lot of my friends freaked out when they said, "You have a co-writer?" Dude, this better sound like you because you're funny. Yeah. And, you know how to tell a story. Right. And so it took a lot of going over until it really sounds like me. Sure. And so it sounds like me, and just like what you're hearing now. Right. And the fun part about it, and I didn't intend to do this, it all wound up being little chapters. Like short stories. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the intention. Mm. It's just for some reason, that's how I spit it out. And then once we kept going over the manuscript time and time again, I was like, you know what? These are short stories. Right. So when you go to the first chapter and it's Brooklyn, you kind of know what you're going to get. Okay. You go to the Ritz, you know what you're going to get. You go to Never Fall in Love with a Hooker. I think you know what you're going to get. So, it's really kind of cool that way. There's a chapter on my mom, Blanche, and, she passed 2 years ago. She was 94, and she was terrific. And people know about her because I made these little 1-minute clips of her late in life, and she was hysterical. Okay. So people would watch them on Facebook and then, wait a minute, your mother is too funny. Yeah. And so she got her own little crowd. When are you going to post something else of Blanche? Yeah. So Blanche has a chapter, and the very last chapter, which I felt like the word gratitude kind of sums up my whole life because I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. And I don't drink or drug anymore. Yeah. I have 12 years coming up, clean and sober. At one point I had full-blown AIDS before there was medication. Mm-hmm. I had a doctor who would come here at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like Dallas Buyers Club. Yeah. It was crazy. Right. It was like nuts out there. Mm-hmm. People were dropping all over the place. Mm-hmm. I was laying on my sofa for a year, just losing weight. Yeah. There was no medication yet. So she gave me IV vitamin drips and all this pills that were coming in from Mexico. Nobody knew what the hell these pills were. But I said, Barbara, you know what? You're my primary care person. I'm going to take them. Right. So about a year later, I kind of got better and I was back at work at Elektra. And, it's the 90s. So people are like, Michael was sick. And whatever. But, I was skinny. But I was up. I was back at work, and I never got sick again like that. Yeah. Of course, you remain HIV positive, but I take my meds every day. Yeah. I mean, for a while, even when I had just gotten better, I still thought it was a good idea to drink and drug. Not. But anyway, you didn't ask me any of that. All this to say, the book's coming out. March 1st, 2020. Awesome. I love the idea of 2020. Yeah. 2020 vision, March, move forward. It's spring ahead. I just everything just feels good about March 1st, 2020. So that's when it's coming out. And like I said, it's all short stories. And I think people are going to really enjoy reading it.
You should do an audiobook.
Yeah, the audiobook.
That's what everyone
for
says
people
as
like
well.
me.
Okay, good.
And
you can't read,
Yeah,
Sam?
I can't read.
Oh, you poor thing. Thank God you're cute. So yeah. So yeah, you know what? I haven't asked the publisher that, but now that you put that in my head, Monday, I will send that email. When do we start recording the audiobook?
Because when the author does it, no matter what, it's always better when they do, because I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
But also, you're a great storyteller. You're a good orator, right?
Oh, yes. Well, as long as they edit me, I'm even better.
Yeah, that's what they do. You sit in a studio, you bang it out. It's not an easy thing to do. It probably takes many hours. But your personality jumps out, whether it's you listening to audio or you watch a documentary.
Sure.
and you're right about the book, it has to be in your voice.
Mhm.
But the audio book would just be another thing. And then one day they'll make a movie about you. So you'll have a book,
Again.
a documentary. No, a movie. Like
a movie,
you're
like
gonna have
the
to find
biopic.
Who's going to play you?
Well, we talk
The
about
Rock?
this all the time. No, The Rock is too many.
You get the same haircut.
Yeah, well, he's too.
Rock would be amazing.
The Rock would be amazing, but he's so big, and I'm so petite.
He's got, you know what, book's going to come out next year. He's got about 2 years to lose weight. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I don't think so. I have a friend, my friend Joe Baldessari.
Christian Bale lost the weight.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
you
the
can rock and do it.
Machinist.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to drop dead after that movie.
Yeah. Oh, and he lost it too in that movie with
The Fighter.
the fighter. Yeah. With Mark Wahlberg.
He did?
yeah, he did.
Yeah, but wait, not like the Machinist.
Not like
Wasn't that Christian Bale?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Mhm.
But my friend Joe would always say, if it was another time period, Sal Mineo should play you in your
Who's that?
biopic.
I don't know who that is.
Wait, hey, how old are you? It doesn't matter.
46.
Sal Mineo, actor who was in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean.
Okay.
He was a personality back then.
Okay.
He didn't live. I don't know how long he lived because he was bludgeoned to death in a garage in West Hollywood, and people don't know if it was a sex thing or a drug deal gone wrong. But anyway, my friend Joe still thinks Sal Mineo should play you. I don't know who should play me, but I'm up for a biopic. That would be
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what,
You got to talk to Drew Stone. You got to get him on it. Have him. Start looking.
and also
If he's in the mood.
because
He might not be in the mood.
he might not be in the mood. But your story is basically it's amazing.
Oh, thank you
yes.
so much.
Everything about it, it's perfect for a biopic.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
And most people who get documentaries made about them are dead.
yeah.
So it's like, we talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the documentary, and it would be a cliche if I died.
Yes.
But I lived.
You lived,
So
yeah.
we could talk about all that till we're blue in the face.
And it's more of like the thing about you too that is clear when you see a lot of documentaries. It's like a redemption story, right? Remember we talked to Mike Dowd
Sure.
from the 7-5.
Yep.
Like, the guy was a cop and he went to prison, all that. Yours is like a guy you root for. Like it's not a redemption. Like you did all this terrible stuff and now you're like, okay again. It's like, there's some ups and downs. Like
Right.
Sam
I
was
mean, I
saying.
did terrible things to my body, unfortunately, by
Right.
all that drinking and crack smoking. But, yeah,
But you have good relationships and you have gratitude.
sure.
And while we're on the subject, while we're plotting out
Yes.
what you're going to do in your future,
Okay.
do you ever think about
please.
doing a podcast? Interviews with people?
Yes, but then I think, I don't know if I have the time. And then I think, well, what else are you doing right now? But that could be fun. Yeah, sure.
You made
Yes.
time for us.
Yes, because then you know what? I could meet people that I haven't met yet.
There you go. Everybody would go on your podcast. That's for
I
sure.
hope.
Yeah, you would just talk to
You
people.
get
Yeah.
the people
Everyone
you
would.
know, but a lot of people that you haven't met yet. of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the first person I would want on my podcast is
George Reynolds.
who?
Yeah.
Did you say
Who
Peter?
the fuck is
did
that
you,
guy?
Did you
Who
say
the fuck is that?
Peter Dinklage?
I said George Reynolds.
Oh. Well, I heard it as Peter Dinklage.
Well, you hear
Anyway,
what you
yeah,
wanna hear.
sure. I'd love to have Peter Dinklage on my show. I'd love to have Philip Anselmo on my show, and
We did.
James
He did.
Hetfield, and Sean from White Zombie, and
This is already my favorite podcast.
And I think
Oh,
you'd have
great.
a much better interview with John Lydon because he likes you. Yeah, there's a lot of interviews I've seen where
well, I
he's,
think now, if I did do a podcast in 2020, sure, there would be a lot more things to speak to John about.
Yeah.
Because, life happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes both the good and the bad happen as life goes on.
Yeah.
And not all the journeys are, sunshine and lollipops.
Of course.
I don't even know how else to say it.
There was one thing too. So I know that you were like representing the Misfits in '97 with American Psycho.
Sure. Yeah.
American Psycho is a great record.
Sure.
I have when I did 30 days. I did 30 days in jail, and I was like 18 or 19, maybe I was 17, and I got a Misfits tattoo in jail. That's how much I liked them.
I have to see how good or bad it is.
Well, I covered it up with a Crimson Ghost. So
Oh.
speaking of the show tomorrow, since
Yes.
they're playing, I
Are you
saw
going?
them. I saw them like when Joey Ramone died, Jerry Only, Marky, and Dez would play as the Misfits, and they would do
that trio.
Yes, and they played Joey Ramone's like something at the Roseland, and this group called the Impotent Sea Snakes opened up. Do you know who they are?
No.
Okay, I thought because they were the most bizarre and insane thing I've ever seen play at an all ages show.
Really?
Where like they
was it any good?
No.
Okay, great.
No, it was, but
You
they
didn't
were
miss
they were like fucking girls with dildos on stage, and it was insane.
Okay,
I figured you would know it because they were, this was that crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, excuse me.
I thought it was around that time. But
No, I've always been a big fan of the Misfits. At some point, I did want to sign them to Elektra, but I didn't because I didn't think it would be fair. I would probably be the only crazy person there loving them. Even though everyone was cool at Elektra, they weren't that cool. I mean, they were corporate. So, people had to get a job done. And I thought to myself, you know what? I just continue to always be a fan. The same thing with the Cro-Mags. I always wanted to sign the Cro-Mags, but I thought to myself, it wouldn't be fair to them being in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Because that's not what it was about at all. I would probably be the only person there loving them, and it would be a great disservice. So fast forward, it's the mid-90s, and I met Geffen, and I decide, the Misfits are reformed with that singer Michael Graves, and I thought, you know what? They write great pop songs. They're a pop band, if you ask me.
Great.
And we made this record with Andy Wallace and Daniel Ray, and it's called American Psycho, and it's a fabulous, fabulous record.
So good.
Oh yeah, and they make great videos for that album as well.
Bones.
Dig Up Her Bones. Ay, so cool.
That's some good shit.
Yeah. But where are we going with that?
Oh no, I was just
Oh,
I was
well,
bringing
and
for tomorrow. Like it's
Yes.
funny, but like it's so they were doing their thing with Michael Graves, and Mike had a great voice. It's just hard to go into shoes. It's like
you can't fill shoes that belong to this extraordinary original with that voice that sounds like no one.
And a catalog like you.
Correct.
Show me a bad Misfit song, and I'll just call you a fucking liar.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's almost like when any artist has to, or doesn't have to, but when any artist decides once their singer has left, do we go on or don't we go on? Well, if you've been passionate about music your whole life and you still feel like there's life in your band, then you find a singer and you just do it.
Yeah.
And then you hope and you pray that the audience will still follow you. And I think most of the audience continued to follow the Misfits, even though, it was with a new singer. Some people may not have liked it, but, to each his own. And you know what? Here we are talking about them. And tomorrow night, which is what? Is it the 18th or the 19th? The 19th. They're playing Madison Square Garden.
Amazing.
Wait a minute. How does that happen? But you know what? Right on.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about energy in the air.
Are you going?
Yeah, of course. I'm running.
Kidding me? He's doing sound.
Maybe. Yeah. No, of course I'm running. And I love that the Damned are opening up the show.
And Rancid.
And Rancid. But I'm going to get there early so I can see the Damned.
Yeah, man.
And I'm sure it's going to be incredible.
So, Michael, I know you work with a band now. You work with a band called Ether Coven. You got them signed to Century Media. Why don't you tell us about them?
Oh, sure. This is a cute little funny story. My cousin Julie called me from Florida.
Okay.
And she said, my next door neighbor's son is in a band. Like, I haven't heard that for 30 years. Okay.
Like Sam's band.
Yeah, like Sam going off earlier in the conversation. Yeah. So I said, sure, I'll listen to it. So she mails me a CD, and the group is called Ether. And the record is called There Is Nothing Left for Me Here.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be dreary.
Yeah.
So I put it on, and it is heavy as fuck. If you like Swans, Crowbar, Phil Anselmo's group Scour, it's heavy, but very beautiful and very musical if you like things that dramatic and heavy. And I heard it, and I'm glad my cousin Julie told me about her next door neighbor's son, because I love them. I thought they were fabulous. And I just, when I come across people like that, which is not too often, which I'm grateful for. I had some conversations with them. I went to Fort Lauderdale to see them. They live in Southern Florida. And I just thought, I love these people. And I love them as people, as well as the music. So, funny enough, speaking about A&R these days in 2019, I said to Peter, the leader of the band, I said, give me 10 of these CDs. I'm going to send them to Napalm, Nuclear Blast, Metal Blade, Seasons of Mist, blah, blah, blah. So I sent all 10 CDs out. And a lot of people got back to me and said, wow, you have a really cool band, but their numbers are terrible. Talk about fire coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
Their numbers are terrible. At first it took me by surprise because I hadn't solicited a band to a label in years. And I thought, numbers. I said, oh, you mean like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, their numbers are bad? And they were like, yeah. And I thought to myself, excuse me, isn't it your job to get these numbers going? Because, these people who are independent, they can only do so much on their own.
Right.
So 9 out of 10 labels said that same thing to me, with 1 or 2 A&R people saying, oh, I wish I could get excited about new bands. And I thought to myself, really? You should just give me your job, because I still go out every night.
Yeah.
I still love music. I still am passionate about, but we won't get into sourpuss A&R people.
Yeah.
So finally, I gave it to my friend Mike Gitter as well at Century Media, and he loved it. He knew it was going to be a very challenging and demanding record to make because they are that heavy. And, we have to figure out what their niche is. But they're really fantastic. They're called Ether Coven because I think there was like a pop band somewhere across America called Ether.
Yeah.
So they're called Ether Coven, and Eric Rattan from Morbid Angel produced their new record, and that comes out in January 2020. So I'm really excited about them. 2020, I tell this to all my friends, I just love that ring. It just sounds so positive and so incredible. Like I said, 2020 vision, 2020 moving forward. So Ether Coven, look for them.
I was going to say, do they have...
Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sam. Century Media just re-released their debut record, There Is Nothing Left for Me Here. So you could find it on Spotify.
That's what I was going to ask.
Spotify, I'm sure, and wherever those.
We're going to listen to it on the way home.
Yeah. I'll give you the actual hard CD, because I still love buying CDs. Yeah. I still want to see what the artwork looks like. I want to read who produced the record. I love when I have to listen to Spotify or other streaming sources, but I'm still a person. Like I just ordered the Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East for me and my friend Keith from Electric Ballroom. He has a radio show that I just did the other day. And I know we got to talking about the Allman Brothers. And he said, well, it's on 180 gram vinyl. I was like, all right already. So I got 2 copies of it for us. And I'm going to go back in time and listen to the Allman Brothers, probably from 1971. In any event. So, I still love going out. I still love seeing music. And I'm glad I came across Ether Coven. And we're going to see what happens in the new year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Not that I didn't bully you into asking more questions.
And just out of curiosity,
yes,
for
please.
Someone like you that's so, you seem to be open to listen to a bunch of stuff. Like
sure.
You talk to your cousin. What other bands have you been listening to in like the last couple of years that you feel have been knocking you on your socks? Any genre.
Playing Dead.
Well, it is mostly, metal. It's mostly hard stuff.
Yeah, whatever.
So, I'm listening to a lot of things these days. I love Black Anvil. I love their album As Was and Hail Death. Killer records. Killer. I just helped Kane Roberts make his new record, The New Normal. I executive produced that record. It came out on Frontiers.
Is he like a blues guitarist?
No, Kane Roberts was Alice Cooper's guitar player for the big muscle guy.
Muscle guy. He played on Trash.
Probably, yeah. So I helped Kane make his new record called The New Normal. I just said that a minute ago. I love the latest Ministry record.
Me too.
Americant.
How great. Have you seen them live on it?
About 5 times.
Oh, so good. I saw them at Riot Fest.
Better than ever.
Yeah.
Better than ever.
So good.
Yeah.
Shout out to Roy Mayorga. I saw him play drums over in Chicago. With Ministry.
Yeah, I mean, I love the
At the Paramount too.
I at the Paramount too.
I love the Venom record, Ave. I think when it came out, was it 2018? It was probably album of the year for me. Like, I love that record so much. And I love them as people as well. Two records that are not new, but when I don't know what else to play, I play, what is it called again? Great Britain?
Oh, Gallows.
Gallows.
Yeah.
When Frank Carter was singing with
Frank
them.
Carter is so good.
Oh, Frank Carter's incredible.
Amazing. So Frank Carter, the first Gallows record to me was amazing. Orchestra of Wolves. It's the one that came out before that. Oh my God.
Oh, that's the one right before this?
Yes.
Okay, this came out on Warner Brothers. I mean, this is a tough record.
That's a tough record.
Yeah.
But the one before it is chaotic. It's so good.
I love chaos.
Orchestra of Wolves.
I'm going to order it right now.
So Frank left the band.
Oh, no, you know what better? I just turned 60. Order it for me and give it to me as my birthday present.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll
Since
see
you came here empty-handed.
I'll see you tomorrow at the Misfit
Your
Show.
grandmother would be ashamed of you.
Shout out to Abuela.
Yes.
But so he left that band and then he joined a band called Pure Love, which was a pop band.
For like a minute.
For like a
only.
minute.
Right.
But they were so good. And then he started putting out Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes.
That's right.
Which almost sounds like Arctic Monkeys. Like it has that flavor, like a little heavier.
Do you know, like for a minute at Webster Hall, they had those little rooms downstairs.
Yep.
Frank played there about a year and a half ago, and I saw him there. It was incredible.
Amazing. Like
because unfortunately, I never got to see him in Gallows. And
Great
Britain is one of my favorite records. Yeah. And those videos they made are incredible.
What a
But
trip.
You know what? Somebody handed me this very obscure record by this one-man band called Midnight Odyssey. And there's a song on this CD called Asleep is the Fire. You could see it on YouTube.
Okay.
It's like 19 minutes long. Extraordinary.
What does it sound like?
It's heavy. Heavy. Sometimes it sounds heavy like Metallica, a typo negative.
Okay.
And sometimes it's orchestral and beautiful and quiet within that 18 minutes. Midnight Odyssey. Asleep is the Fire.
Cool. If I could find all these, then maybe I'll throw them on a playlist.
Whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
No, whatever. So I don't know. Oh, and you know what? I always love seeing my friend James sing. He sings for a band in Long Island called Borgo Pass. Okay. They're also in my documentary. They kind of close the whole documentary up, and he's an extraordinary singer.
Yeah.
Hi, Paulie. Hi, everybody. Hi, James.
They've been playing forever.
For a very long time. And, you know, I just saw that they were always trudging it out. And I thought, I love these people and I want them in my documentary.
Awesome.
And so they're in the documentary. Borgo Pass.
Shout out.
And their last little EP that they put out was called The Sludge Remains the Same.
I love that.
That's totally. The Sludge Remains the Same.
Yeah. I think, what, you want to do the last question? Yeah.
Oh, you can do the last question.
All right. Last question.
Yes.
Michael, the name of the podcast is If I Ruled the World. Mm-hmm. So we ask all of our guests, we pose them that question. Mm-hmm. If you ruled the world, what would that look like?
Oh my gosh. That's like being put on the spot. And I don't want to sound so corny or anything, but if I ruled the world, I would hope for more peace and understanding and respect for one another. You know, there's so much going on in the world politically, socially, that it just doesn't feel right. There's a lot of upset globally.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also don't want to sound like Pollyanna, but I think, you know, I always say to people, if you don't know somebody and they're sitting next to you, say hello to them.
Yeah.
You know, if you're, you know, in any kind of a situation where you don't know people, say hello, shake their hand, look at them straight in the eye, smile at them. You know, all that stuff changes a person's day. And it becomes like a domino effect that if you're kind, you hope you spread that kindness.
Yeah.
So it's about being kind and about having a certain humanity to everybody that you meet. There was some quote, and I don't remember the quote really, except it said something, and I'm paraphrasing, that meet everyone you meet, say hello to them as if we're all going to be dead tonight. I know it's a little extreme and a little grim.
It's great.
But you know what? In this day and age, we see people passing at 59 years old,
Yeah.
62 years old. So it's all about just being kind and loving the people that you're with and giving people the time of day. And I'm sure I'm not really answering the question the way you want it answered.
It's the way you.
It's the way you want it.
What did you describe it as? A Rorschach?
It's a Rorschach test.
Oh, I love a Rorschach
Funny
test.
enough, right?
Yes, yes.
Isn't that what like?
I have a
that's
friend,
what
my
it
friend
reminded
Tim
me.
Ebneth, he's a painter, and sometimes his stuff is like abstract.
Yeah.
And I'd say, oh my God, that tornado is fantastic. And he'd say, it's not a tornado. And I'd be like, it's a tornado to me. And you know why your painting is good? It's because it elicits all this stuff
Yeah.
that when you look at it, it may not be a tornado. It could have been a black flower,
Right.
but that's the beauty of it, that everyone's going to look at it and have something different to say about it. And in having something different to say about it, you did your job beautifully.
That's
So
what that
you know
question
what?
is.
I
The
just
question
want to be.
elicits-
I just want to live on this planet and do my job brilliantly and be kind to as many people, or everybody that I meet, and in hopes that, like I said, it produces that domino effect that everybody gets along. Black, white, trans, gay, straight, whatever. We're all human beings just trying to do the best that we can to move forward in our lives, to be the best people that we can. So I hope after people listen to this podcast, you better come up and say hello to me on the street.
That's right.
So I can say hello back to you.
It's the fabulous world of Michael Alago.
Oh, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thanks for having us here.
Oh, I appreciate it. Really. It's
Yeah.
been fun.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank
Cool.
you.
we're good.
If I ruled the world, I love 'em, baby.